Okay, this is the demonstration of competency rubric. This is the thing you have to demonstrate. This is how you get the grade, so to speak. Okay? So a lot of you've done the skills, you've done the projects. And what have I told you so far about how that figures into your overall grade? It's only a third of your score. So if you look at the rubric, it's divided into 3 sections. The 2/3 at the bottom, that's the most important part. That's the part that deals with the actual competency. What you've done so far in the grade book is this first row. Okay? So this document, this rubric, is what is going to be used to assess your demonstration of competency. So we're going to walk through this rubric, we're going to understand this rubric, and then you're going to use this rubric as your guide when you create your demonstration of competency. Yep. All right, so the first row we're going to talk about is called the relevance to content area. And the asterisk part says standards-based proficiency score from gradebook competency. So where does the information from here come from? What did I just tell you? It comes right out of the, not the competencies, but from the grade book, the actual standard scores. This is the stuff you've already done. These are the projects. These are the standards. So in your grade book, when all of those standards are nested under that competency, they're going to push a score, right? And whatever that score is, that's going to transfer onto this rubric. So again, it has to be proficient. All of your standards have to be proficient, which means they have to be at least a what? 3, 4, or 5, depending on the level of that standard expectation. So when you average together all of those levels of proficiency, it's going to push a score. Let's say it pushes a 4. Boom. I color code this cell because your grade book standards demonstrate a level 4. Can I improve this even after my demonstration of competency? Yes. Why? Because it's CVE. It means what? You can go back and fix it. Now, you got to be careful about that because these are the standards. You can actually go back and fix those later. This is the competency. You can't exactly go back and fix this later. This is the part where you know it or you don't know it. And you're going to know it because we're going to talk at the level 5 where you all want to be. Okay? You're not even going to approach me if you're not at least at a level 3 where you can apply your understanding of the competency, analyze your understanding, evaluate your understanding. So the language is exactly the same as we use with the standards. Okay? This is the part that's brand new. This is the part you've probably never done before. This is the part you really want to pay attention to. The first part is talking about enduring concepts. So this part in highlight says, to what extent does this demonstration of competency reflect value over time, 5 or 10 years from now? In other words, why does it matter that I know these skills? How am I going to apply these skills 5 and 10 years from now? And when I'm talking about skills, what skills am I talking about? What are the skills that you're learning? The employability skills. More specifically, what's the majority of your rubric packet? Writing skills, speaking skills, listening skills, reading informational text skills, reading literature text skills, okay? Now, if I'm using this rubric to demonstrate competency 1, what skills do I have to show have an enduring concept? Which skills am I going to draw from for competency 1? How do I know which skills to draw from for competency 1? How do I know which skills were assessed? I can look at the rubric packet. I can look in my grade book. Any of those skills that were under competency 1 are the ones that you're going to explain in the enduring concepts. So what you're going to say is, for example, when you look back at your competency 1, by recognizing our country's heritage, we communicate to collaborate and create in order to be an active participant in our country's future. What are some of the projects that you did to demonstrate your ability to collaborate and create? You did the freshman college presentation. What standards were assessed with that? Speaking and listening, it was a presentation. You also did your, that pre-assessment piece on the age of reason. What were some of the standards that were assessed with that? Your ability to understand what?
The author's purpose.
So that would be, was it literature or was it informational text?
Informational.
So that would be an RI. What are some other standards that were assessed under that one? So we have your pre-assessment, post-assessment. We have your college presentation. We also have your scarlet letter theme analysis. Those are going to be what standards? We did a writing theme analysis, so that's your W-2.
Is there an SL in there for the discussion?
There was an SL1 for the discussion. So you've got all these different standards, all these different skills that demonstrated that competency, right? Does that make sense? Those are the skills nested under the competency. So for the enduring concepts, here's what you're going to do. Which of those skills am I likely to use in my future? Probably all of them, but more specifically, I'm going to pick some of them. How many do you think I should pick? Because you were assessed like 12 to 13. I'm all right with 3 to 4 because they're going to happen under multiple competencies, right?
Yeah.
So what you're going to show me is, how did I demonstrate that skill in class? So for example, how did I demonstrate speaking and listening 1, having a discussion? How did I demonstrate that in class? What did you do?
We discussed this.
In order to discuss the stuff, what did you have to do? Remember that whole SL1 standard?
Literature.
You read the literature. You understood it. How did you know you understood it? What did you have to do?
Read it.
You took notes over it, and then what did you do with those notes?
Give.
You discussed them with your small group. So what you just did is you showed me how you use those in class. But this says, to what extent does this demonstration reflect value over time? Are you ever going to have to speak again in your future?
Yeah.
Over something that you've read and taken notes over?
Yeah.
Give me an example of that.
College.
College classes. Where else?
Work.
Work. So you've got other times when these enduring concepts are relevant. So there are 2 parts to the enduring concepts. How did I use those skills in class? And how am I going to use them in my hypothetical future? And I'm going to pick 3 to 4 of the skills that were assessed under that competency. The more specific you are, the more I know that you really get it. Now that's going to come through later in the second part. Because right now we're just talking about, that's 5 years. What's 10 years from now? The majority of you are not still going to be in college in 10 years. Where will you likely be? In the workplace, in the workforce. So how are those skills going to be relevant in that case? That's where you're going to get more specific. And that's where you're going to create that hypothetical future of what do I want to be. So that's where we go back to that example. Let's say, how am I going to demonstrate speaking and listening 1 discussion in a hypothetical future situation? When might I need that skill?
If you're in the National Guard, you have drill.
There you go. So what am I going to read when I'm in the National Guard?
Presentations on it.
What am I going to, and I'm going to take notes on that presentation of their information, and then I'm going to discuss with my group. Now, here, what's missing? How is this tying it all to the competency of recognizing our country's heritage to communicate and collaborate to be an active participant? How is that at all? In your case, it's the National Guard. Where is my reference to the past? Learning about my country's heritage. Is there any reference? Am I telling you any of that yet?
No.
So that's missing. Because remember, this is a demonstration of competency, not a demonstration of skill. You already showed me how you do the skills, but now you have to show me how the skills relate to the competency. So in my college classes, when might I need to know about my American heritage? And how might that help me in my future? Okay, so maybe I'm going to, and most freshmen have to take some sort of general education. One of those is probably history-based. Maybe I want to become a history teacher. Maybe I want to write anthologies of historical literature. I don't know. That's why it's hypothetical. That's why you're projecting outside of this class right now. So learning these skills, how is that helping me for my...
History kind of repeats itself, so you learn from the past mistakes.
Absolutely. So the fact that history repeats itself, here's what we did in the past. And here's what I can do in the future to demonstrate collaboration and creation. So in my explanation, I'm going to say, in class, I collaborated with my small group to discuss the novel. I created my notes to demonstrate my understanding, and then our conversation created themes, right? I used those themes to create a theme analysis essay, and there I'm addressing RL2, I'm addressing W2, all those other skills. In my future, in the college situation, I could likely be taking college classes with history background, so my knowledge of the history of American literature will help me discuss in that class how I will make the future better. Do you see how I'm using the language of the competency, how I'm addressing the skill that I learned in class, and how I'm going to use that skill again in the future? That's the enduring concepts part. Do you have to write that as a paper to me? How else could you share this information with me if it was not in a paper that you write?
PowerPoint.
Maybe you want to create a presentation. Do you have to then present it to the class? You could just present it to me. So maybe you want to make a presentation. How else could you share the information? Maybe just have a conversation with me. You just have to demonstrate your competency, however you choose to demonstrate. Now, some of you might want to mock out this whole plan of step-by-step bullet points or whatever. Fine, that works too. But this demonstration of competency needs to stand on its own. Because if I'm probing you for all these questions, well, what if? Well, what if? How about analyzing it? How about evaluating it? Are you demonstrating the competency when I'm asking you the questions? No. You've got to bring it at that level. And that's where this is, the same stuff. Application, analysis, hows and whys, and synthesis and evaluation, value over time, value to you, etc. Okay? How did I use it in class? These are the skills. How am I going to use them in the future? Hypothetical future, 5 and 10 years from now. Always with the language of the competency. Always referring back to the purpose of communication that is evident in that competency. So that's 2/3 of your score. So the first third came from where? The skills right out of the grade book. The second part is your explanation of your application, analysis, or evaluation of those skills. And now we're looking at universal constructs. Okay? The third section, all 6 universal constructs are specifically listed there. And I will tell you, we're doing all 6 all the time. You just don't necessarily know it. Let me move. To what degree are the universal constructs below reflected in the demonstration of competency? Here are these universal constructs. Think about where we've done these in class already. Critical thinking, complex communication, creativity, collaboration, flexibility and adaptability, productivity and accountability. Have we done any of those in class so far? In competency 1, just with those projects and things we've done?
Sure.
Have we critically thought at all?
Yeah.
Have we communicated in a complex fashion at all? Have we been creative?
We've done all of them.
Yeah. They just naturally happen. But what you're going to now do is explain to me where they happened, how they happened. I need to know that you did these universal constructs. So when we worked in our small groups, we were collaborating to complexly communicate about the novel. Okay, so you're using the language of the universal constructs, and you're showing how you did them in class. But then it also says that you evaluate the necessity of these important habits with strong connections between them and the content area. So it's not just that I used them in class. Remember, this is about the transfer. This is about grabbing that handle and going. Why are these universal constructs necessary for you to know? Collaboration, creativity, adaptability, and flexibility. Why does that matter?
Because you're going to have to use that in the workplace.
Always. In the workplace, in college. So what you have to demonstrate in this strand is, how did I demonstrate those universal constructs in the class? And how am I going to demonstrate them in the future? Still using the language of the competency. Remember, it's all about your purpose in communication. I learned the history of American literature to be able to collaborate and create in order to make a better future. 3 parts. Skills out of the grade book based on the standards. Skills, again, the same standards, but what you're doing is you're demonstrating how did I use them in class and how am I going to use them in my hypothetical future. Universal constructs, how did I demonstrate those in class and how am I going to demonstrate those in the future? All using the language of the competency. I will tell you, this language of the competency is what most people forget. They can tell me how they do the skills, and they can tell me how they do the universal constructs, but remember, this is a demonstration of competency. And if you're not using the language of the competency, then you're missing the whole thing. All you're doing is telling me what we did in class and how you're going to use it in the future. It has to tie to the language of the competency, the purpose of communication in this case. Okay? So those 3 parts then, those will average together, and that is your final competency score for competency number 1. Gradebook, enduring concepts, universal constructs, average together, competency 1 score. Yes, this rubric is for each of the competencies. So same rubric, the only thing that's going to change is the skills that you're demonstrating under that competency with the projects, and then the competency that you're demonstrating. Now, some people have merged them together. Some people, instead of doing 3 different competency presentations, they've smushed some of them. But you still have to make sure the language of the competency is evident both ways. So the flexibility exists in how you choose to demonstrate it. The flexibility exists in how you choose to merge the competencies. That's totally up to you. If you want to write, most people write something, and it becomes like an 8-page document by the time you really explain all this stuff. People who present the information, again, I can't probe you for questions. So they come to me with jots and bullets and basically a script, and then they just read me their script. And I can just assess it, boom, 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 real quick. Because I'm following this while I'm listening to you.
Which do you prefer?
I prefer what's best for you. Some people really want to write it all out because that's the way they think. Some people just want to have a conversation with me because that's the way they think. That's where it becomes independent to your demonstration. Yes?
So it doesn't have to be like a real conversation, it's more like...
No, it's you telling me stuff. Yeah, it's not really a conversation because, again, if I'm asking you questions, that's not fair to the people who wrote it because they don't get to go back and edit that. I'm not going to comment around on it. They're just going to have their level demonstrated here. If you want to give a presentation to me or have a talk to me, not really a conversation, we just need to get that on my calendar. We could do it during class while everybody else is working. We could do it after class. Because of the length of these and all the work that we put into it, it usually takes like a 5-minute conversation. However you choose to do it. The key is you just want to make sure you're following the rubric to the level of proficiency you want to demonstrate. Analysis, remember, answers what 2 questions? How and why. So if what you're saying is, here's everything we did and here's what I'm going to do in the future, that's a what. That's just an application. That's proficient, but that's application level proficient. If you want to move to the higher level of learning, you're going to be talking about hows and whys. Here's how I did what I did, and here's how I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and here's why it matters. And again, all with the language of the competency. And then the evaluation is beyond that, the further so what. A lot of people kind of look at this as the how and this is the why, but this is the why that gives value. Why does it matter? Not just why did I do it, but why does it matter that I did it or that I'm going to do it? So it's like a y squared. Okay? Now you've got all your explanations of the application, analysis, evaluation levels. This document is going to be shared with you. Follow it as you're going. Make sure you're doing all the things it says to do. As you're processing through it, if you want to ask me, am I on the right track? I'll help you with that, but I'm not going to tell you how to fix it because that's your demonstration of competency. And if I'm telling you how to do it, then I'm telling you how to be competent, and you have to tell me how you're competent. Now, there were 6 universal constructs. How many of them do I have to do?
6.
Do I have to do all 6 every time?
No.
I'm going to say probably not. I mean, we're doing them all the time anyway. I'm seeing it through your skills. If there are 6 and we have 5 competencies that we're going to demonstrate, what do you think's a good?
1 or 2 in each.
I'd say 2. okay? And pick the two that are most, in the end, it makes sense that you would use all 6 throughout the course of the year. So if I use creativity in this one, I probably should not use creativity again. So find the ones that seem to be most applicable to what this competency is asking and plug them in to those competencies. Can you do more? Absolutely. We said to do in the Enduring Concepts 3 to 4 skills. Can you do more? Absolutely. Are they going to cross over? Do I have to write separate sections? No, it's all in how you choose to structure it. So some people write me a redonkulously huge paragraph, and we just highlight and color code things so we can both see that everything is there.